there's a lot of charlatans out there at the moment, right? When it comes to breaking into tech, this is the fancy term that everyone is using. And they make it just sound just so nonchalant, just easy going. Oh yeah, just break into tech.
Quit your coal mining job and come into tech.
Yeah. Do this 8-week boot camp and, you know, you'll be working for Netflix in 3 months. So I wanted to get someone on who actually is working in tech, who is a software engineer and knows what the fuck they're talking about. So who better than my brother?
Basil Breen.
Yeah, he introduces himself, like, you know. So, Basil.
It covers it all.
Yeah, so Basil, tell us, what do you do for a living?
Well, let's say a few years ago, I broke into the tech industry after 4 years of college and
Crippled his back doing it.
crippled. Hard labour. Went to work for a company in London with my good friend Chuck, who's now getting a shout out on someone else's podcast. And he gave me my first job. Worked my way up as a junior developer. Was, you know, decent but pretty bad. I thought, you know, did you ever hear the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you have...
Absolutely not.
So as you start doing something,
Yeah.
you think you're terrible. Then you get a little bit better. You think you're way better. You think, I'm actually really good. And then when you learn loads, you don't know shit. Now, there has been a bit of a debate about this general study, but people like to pull this out as a way of saying these junior developers, these millennials, they're thinking that they're way better than they are. But there's definitely a bit of that I could recognise. Even when I was working with actually Killian McNulty, when I was working on my own before I went to London, I felt, I can build websites, I can do things. So I'm a coder, I'm a developer.
Yeah. I'm established.
But then over years, then obviously coming to work with you on the last thing we did, the jobs board, that was me on my own building something from scratch, and all the technology, all the stack from bottom to top, and we'll get into a bit of that later. That's kind of where I sort of blossomed into, I would say, a more senior developer. So
how long did that take?
I mean, yeah, you're talking of actually, so working as a developer, and bear in mind, you know, I'd been exposed in college for 4 years to programming and coding and all that, this realm. And I was into me computers as a young lad, but I never got into coding, as you'd say.
Yeah.
So I had a little bit of foundation there, but I do think with this sort of realm or industry or pursuit, as in programming, becoming a developer, being able to build things with language. Really, it's building things with text. It all comes down to, it's just text, but we'll come back to that. I'd say from there till now, you're talking. It's at least 6 or 7 years from
after college,
after
full-time work.
Exactly.
6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now the working was better for me because having that accountability and getting paid, I realized, is a massive driver in order to want to do something and to want to do a good job. To have, you're like, I need to make money from this, so my survival is tied up in earning the living from this. Yeah,
and then you want to justify, you know, your paycheck as well. Is this person going to keep paying me?
Exactly.
Like, why are they going to keep paying me?
There's loads of mechanisms that you can make use of, whether subconsciously or not, when you actually get into a position where you're getting paid, and especially if you feel like your work will be respected and good work will be recognized. But that's a whole other thing.
Well, that's right. So, and what do you do right now? Explain your current job.
So, right now, I'm contracted 2 days a week for this company. They do Amazon ads, and products. So what they do is they specialize in bringing a product to market. A great example that we use at the company is the puppy pee pads. So imagine you have a dog, a puppy that's peeing a lot.
Yeah.
You get these pads, right? But what this company does is that they partner with other companies, and like imagine you partner with Marvel. So you make Marvel pee pads. So they get the brand recognition on the pee pads. And so then their whole thing is trying to they put a lot of money into ads, and they're trying to optimize their ads. So they want to get the most bang for their buck. So if they're paying X for this amount of ads, they want to get Y back and make a good return on investment.
Yeah.
So it's all about optimizing the ads. And so what I'm currently doing is, so there's different layers, or we refer to them as stacks in sort of the programming world or developer world. So imagine you have the front end, right? So when someone says I'm a front end developer, what they really mean is the user interface that you're looking at. So think a web page, think an app, the visual thing that you can see and interact with, the buttons that you can click. That's the front end.
Front end developer.
Then you have the back end. The back end is, imagine you're logging into Facebook. You fill in the text inputs on the front end. When you hit submit, your username and password goes to another server, checks against a database, has some other credential checks. Maybe it's checking rate limiting, how many times it's blah, blah, blah. And then it comes back to you and says, you're logged in. It gives you a little code or a little key to store on your laptop, so you can use then to communicate in the future with that web page. So the front end communicates with the back end. All right, the back end is a server, like a computer. It's like literally a computer that is running somewhere. Like if you think about it, it's just like your laptop is running loads of stuff on it now. You can open up a port on your laptop where you could allow communication to your laptop, and you could respond. If you wanted to say hello every time someone hit your laptop, you could do that, and they could get that information. So that's the back end. And then there's a whole other realm now called developer operations, or DevOps for short, which is, so the computers that the back end is running on. But I have to try to describe the computers that the back end is running on is that's infrastructure. So DevOps is responsible for creating the code that creates the infrastructure and ties it all together. And so you'd have a computer here that's used for storage. You'd have another computer here that's used for replying to or processing emails and storing them in this computer. So you're using code to create infrastructure in a way.
Right.
So they'd be like the three main stacks. So I've come through all them different stacks, and now I'm doing develop DevOps at the moment.
Okay, cool. And what the people really want to know is, I want to make a shitload of money and work at Netflix.
Yes.
Or work at Apple.
Or they refer to them as FANG companies.
Yeah, the FANG boys.
Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google.
Yeah. So what is the least difficult path to becoming, say, a software engineer or a software developer at one of these companies? Like if you're
going from zero,
literally, I want to change my career today. Like, what do I do? Where do I go?
So, I mean, like, first of all, you kind of have to look at yourself and say, is this something that I would enjoy doing, I think, fundamentally? And there are ways to gauge it before you even begin. And these aren't sort of major red flags. Like, you can go in and further after these if you find, these came up for me when I was looking in. But if you felt like you really hated maths when you were in school, now you can look at that and say, I didn't have good teachers, I wasn't motivated, blah blah blah. So you don't, but that's it, like, because a lot of it comes down to sort of mathematical principles. Like if you think about algebra, like x equals blah blah blah. That's like a core part of you're basically creating your own algorithms. Like programming teaches you how to write in a logical way that you don't need to use you don't need to use formulas. You can actually sort of create formulas in your mind and produce them with code. It's like code is like it's like the English language. You know the way you have grammar, just rules that you have to follow, and syntax that you have to follow in order for it to be English. And in the same way, like programming has its own syntax, and you have to write it in a certain way for the program to even run. And then if you wanted to do a particular thing, like describe a cup, you know, if you were trying to write a paragraph to describe a cup, then you'd have to write in a particular way. So it's very much a creative, artistic endeavor. So now I wouldn't say that has to be. So let's say, okay, you think, all right, maybe I did have an aptitude, or I enjoyed maths, or maybe I didn't even enjoy maths. Then you're just thinking, I don't like what I'm doing here in whatever it is that I'm doing, even if it's something that I'm not doing. And then I would advise going to a website called Code Academy. So Code Academy, this is your first port of call. It's a free website. They have paid courses. I would do their fundamentals in, they'd have web, so that would be HTML, CSS. So that's what web pages. If you right click a web page and you go to inspect source, you'll see HTML. And the HTML are like the blocks of that make up a page. I won't get too into it. And then the CSS is what's used to give stuff color and shape and position and all sorts of stuff.
So these are the fundamentals.
So HTML, CSS, that's not programming really. People wouldn't say it's programming, although there's elements of programming that are using CSS, such as classes, but it's just a way to, okay, you don't even need to be a hardcore writing logic to do like user logins and hashing crypto algorithms. Like HTML and CSS is actually a great skill to have and then if you were going into design, because I don't want to get too into this, so let's just say, first of all, Code Academy, get the HTML, CSS fundamentals out of the way, because that'll give you an understanding of how. I think the problem is that when we don't know anything about a particular topic, it seems very scary. It feels like, how the hell is this even working? And then when you actually know a bit about it, like if I showed you some code now, you'd be like, what is that? But if I actually walked through and explained it, you'd say, okay, that's what that does. It's like if you showed me a sentence in Spanish, and I'm like, I didn't know what that was, and Engineer Paddy, who's been practicing his Spanish, not really, he was translating that, I'd understand it, you know what I mean? So HTML and CSS to give you sort of fundamental foundations of the web in general and websites in general, because websites and HTML and CSS, you might think, like, so the other part as well is that apps on your phone, they use native code. Let's just say it's not HTML and CSS, but there are ways to build apps with HTML, CSS, and the other component that you'll be going into after that in your Code Academy journey is the JavaScript course. Now, there's a lot to be said for JavaScript, right? It's the most popular language in the world. It runs on any web browser, and it doesn't show any signs of slowing down. There's always, it's the most sort of transformative like part of the ecosystem, in a way that like every week there's a new library, there's a new way of doing things. People are always pushing the boundaries, trying to squeeze the most speed. It's the most investment of money and time in the general ecosystem of, let's just say, programming technology and the web. Now it does have its quirks. It's been around, like your man Brendan Ike, he made JavaScript, I think that's his name, but anyway, he built that JavaScript over a 10-day period for like the Netscape browser. It's a really interesting story, and basically, you know, there's some things in there that now you won't really come across them. It's just you have to kind of, you'll basically go to Code Academy, right? Do the JavaScript course. That'll give you fundamentals of then you could say, I know a bit of programming then, because with JavaScript, that's how you'll imagine you wanted to show a date anytime someone clicked a button. It's like the button said, what date is it? When you click the button, you have JavaScript code that says, get the current day, find that HTML element on the page that you want to change, and then change it to that date that you had. That's a simple little bit of functionality. But JavaScript, you can do, imagine the amount of interactivity that is available to you if you can learn JavaScript. You can access HTML and CSS and edit it as you please. If it's raining out, you could switch in an image for a rainy image. If you could hook it into a weather API. But I won't get to it. But anyway, the point is, JavaScript is a great language because it's the most popular, and it's a little bit more difficult than, I would say, Python to learn. But if you're looking for the most bang for your buck, and you're looking to try and get into the industry with your sort of the most direct path, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, that will make you more valuable on the marketplace than anything else. So then,
and what would be the length of, say, the learning curve there? Like, how long would it take to pick it up? It's hard to put.
So it really depends, right? So that's the first bit is to do them courses on Codeman. You get the fundamentals.
Yeah.
And then this is when you need to start going doing your own learning, because you've got the fundamentals. But what really pulls a developer from going from a junior to senior, or from even beginner to junior, is having a reason to develop, and for something to pull them into the future. So what I would then suggest is you create your own website. You buy a domain and you create a blog website, and you Google how to create a blog website with just do that. Just do that and see why. Just follow your intuition. Follow your gut in that respect. So you wanna basically have a blog, and even if you're not using it, even just a website to house your CV or portfolio or something. You need to build a website, right? And that little project alone, you'll learn so much along the way, because you have to learn how to, how do I buy a domain? How do I host a website? How do I, write? How do I get my name to appear on a web page or whatever? Now, you would have picked up some of this during the course, but the fact that you're trying to then build this thing, that will, because it's very painful development in terms of, I don't know why this isn't working, or I don't know why this is working, but it is. There's lots of kind of banging your head against the ground, and the real test is the grit. You need to have enough grit to basically sit there and search and find the answer, because a lot of the time, I mean, without Google, without the ability to search, there'd be no real developers, because the ecosystem is so big. Like, I picked up the DevOps stuff I'm doing now. I was Googling because I was looking at our current setup, and I felt there was issues with it in terms of reusability and the modularity of it. And I found this other technology, and I said, I think this is going to be the future of DevOps in a way. And then Fred, shout out to good old Fred, he was like, yeah, I think we should, this looks good. And so then we were both learning this for the first time. So we're just searching the documentation, and then you're building up intuitions. But the amount of times I'm just like, what is going on? I don't have a clue, and it's really overwhelming. And you're always learning, but you need to be able to develop your ability to even search. Your ability to ask good questions to Google.
Googling is a key skill.
It's a massive key skill. You don't even realize how important it is. Your ability to extract information from Google is so important, and you'll learn that when you're saying, okay, how do I build a blog? Right, there'll be loads of tutorials, and then it's like, all right, how do I access like a SQL database from my whatever server, Python server, JavaScript server, whatever it is.
There's actually you'll see videos on the likes of TikTok and Instagram where it's software engineer, it's like expectation, and they're just in this like matrix room with like 20 different monitors, and they're just coding with a hoodie on, and then it just says reality, and they're just like Googling stuff.
Yeah.
So like,
if you've ever come across Stack Overflow, that's where the greatest people who have ever lived come to contribute to our
what they found
simple
on Google
questions. Yeah. Someone will ask a question, how do you, even the simplest, I Google, there's a big secret is, it's like, sometimes you just forget how to do a stupid simple thing, like get a day in JavaScript, maybe you forgot that.
Yeah, it's more about knowing what to Google.
Yeah, you need to know, the thing with development is you build the intuition for what you want, and then you know how to get there through searches or whatever. And the only way to get there is through, I think, a little side project. So the other thing with JavaScript as well that I didn't touch on is that JavaScript runs on the front end, and it also runs on the back end. It's the only language really that has that kind of sort of symmetry and ability to run on both. Now there are technologies now like WebAssembly that are allowing you to write Python and other languages that run on the web browser, but JavaScript is like an all-in-one language where you can basically do everything if you learn it. If you learn Python, you'll be mainly doing back-end tasks, more machine learning type tasks, if that's something that you want to get into. But you can also do all that with JavaScript. So I think the most bang for your buck is to learn JavaScript, and then
build your own portfolio. So let's say, right, you've learned JavaScript, you've learned HTML, CSS, you've done Code Academy, you've done the fundamentals, and you have your little blog sitting there.
And there's one more aspect as well as the little coding project, the little portfolio website or whatever it is. It could be a website for something that you need in your life. That's even better. So for example, basilbreen.com has a hashtag generator. So when I'm posting things online, I have a button that I click that copies and pastes hashtags. Or I've created this thing now that I'm creating clippers. It'll clip videos for me. Like I've obviously can go real
You're
far.
Just automating parts of your life, yeah.
But it's like I have an interface. My website is my interface, my tools. So if you have something in your life, maybe you want to know what time it is in Singapore without having to Google it, and you just want it on a web page that you like your website /Singapore. How would you get the time in Singapore? It's actually not as easy as you might think, and that little thing alone, you'll learn so much. So whatever, if you have something that you want and you've seen, we all have an intuition for what exists online already, what we've seen. So Google, imagine how to have a login system, how to have a Facebook feed, like clone. There's loads of clones of all the big websites. But on top of the portfolio, what I'd say is to hone your skills. Imagine you're playing chess and you want to get better. You want to learn, like study opening moves, closing moves, all whatever it is. With programming, there's these little puzzles. Imagine I said, if I gave you a function, it's like let's just say it's a part of the programming landscape. It's like a fundamental sort of construct. So a function is something that takes, let's just say our function is, it takes in a string, which is a name. For example, it takes in Sean, or it takes in Paddy, takes in Basil, and reverses it. You know what I mean? Yeah. It takes in a name and reverses that name. So how would you do that? And then you'll have to like figure out, okay, how do I reverse a string? Let's say a string is anyway, we won't get too into stuff. So there's a website called codewars.com, and that basically gives you little programming puzzles that you will solve, and you can also see other people's solutions. So they rank them as well, so you can't even get into the website unless you can solve the first one. So
that's cool.
It's really good, and so it kind of, the gatekeeping is you need to know the basic fundamentals. You know, cool, what a variable is, what is this, what is that, and then when you get in, they go from I think 10 to 1 being the hardest. So you do the easy ones, and you work your way up, and then suddenly you find you're doing level 8s and level 6s. I did a few level 4s, this was years ago when I was getting into it, and I got real into it, you know. But level 4s, like some of the things are crazy. Like the level 1s are write code that does, air traffic control. Imagine it gets the ideas, and there's all these programming Olympics that the questions and all are insane. I won't get too into that, but what I say is the code wars, if you make that a daily practice, you're coming in, and then you're earning reputation on the website, and you're learning so much. And then when you do, no matter what, when you finish your solution, you look at everyone else's solution and you say, because there's a million ways to do things in JavaScript or any language. Like you can do Python, you can do with that code wars thing, you can learn loads of different languages, and they're like little Sudoku puzzles or little crossword puzzles that will hone your skills and give you the tools that you need in the little moments when you're sitting in front of something trying to do, because you'd be so surprised how knowing with me, right, the more I expose myself to the different layers, like front end, back end, DevOps, let's say, the more I can synthesize between them layers, and I can take good bits from this and I can take good bits from that, because it's all abstracted ideas and abstracted ways of doing a particular thing, and everyone's developed their own ways of doing things, and the more you can expose yourself to different ideas and ways of doing things, the more you'll be able to synthesize and find your own groove, because it's a very it's an artistic endeavor, really. You're creating, you're writing. It's it's very rewarding as well. And if you can get into the habit of doing these puzzles, there's lads that have just done Code Wars puzzles, these kind of things, and that's a programming interview in a big company. It's like a massive part of it is the whiteboard. It's the dreaded whiteboard interview. So they'll say reverse a string. Like that'll be a simple little task. I can't think of it.
So basically, what you learn in Code Wars will prepare you for the interview. Your very first interview.
You'll always be a coding exam. Like one thing I got was how to format like a phone number in a particular way when I was going into my first job, my second job actually with Chuck. And then they'll ask you. Most companies will give you like a take-home project, like create an interface for this a fairy website with this data. So they'll give you, so imagine a product, right? So a product has a name, it has a category, it has a price. So there's a way of storing that in code, and then you can loop over each one of these and do a thing. So for each one of these items, like on Amazon, you see loads of products. Imagine that's just like data. That's just pure data, a list of data that's just being iterated on. So for each one of these items, do this particular thing with this code. So yeah, I think that with the Code Wars, and then right, you've done your Code Wars, then the Code Academy, and you're building your little blog, and then that should be enough to try and get your first junior position once you feel like you've fleshed that out a good bit. And then the other website that I've come across, and this is something that I'll be looking to purchase, is Algo Expert. So now this is a paid thing, so it's like 100 or 200 quid. But this is where if you really want to go and work at big companies, it's dedicated to kind of real tough interview questions and answers, and the whole process around because Algo Expert, like algorithms, like they'll have sorting algorithms. So imagine I give you a deck of cards and I asked you to sort them, like so from highest to lowest, and they were just randomly given to you.
Yeah.
So there's different types of algorithms that will allow you to sort that with code. And some algorithms, like imagine you wanted to find a particular card in the stack, right? What's the quickest way of doing that? Now as a human, you'll do a particular thing, but in code it's different. So different algorithms will be better suited for different tasks. Just imagine it like that. And whereas you don't really use them in everyday programming, most of your time you're just, creating a little button that's showing the weather or whatever, or logging people in. Companies will. This is a massive sort of filter that companies will put on. You'll need to know these algorithms inside out before you go for the big companies. You know what I mean? But as a junior developer, you won't need to be It's good to do these things. I think if you're really serious about this, I would invest in this website I've come across called Algo Expert, and then do them questions. There's other websites like League Code. Code Wars, I think for me, it's free, it's fun, it's community based.
So you can get your first job. Like you don't have to pay for anything. Like in terms of training, yeah.
No.
Because there's boot camps that show up, and a few boot camps, companies that run coding boot camps, they've approached me and to like promote their stuff and things, and I just go to Reddit. Reddit's great for getting like real information. And when I looked at what people were saying on Reddit about these boot camps, people were paying $1,500 to $2,000 and getting very little. Everything they needed to know was available for free on YouTube, and plus like the companies were telling them to lie about projects they worked on and stuff. So I just I was like, don't message me. I can't risk like damaging my name. Or
you've just triggered a story that I want to tell. about a friend, Joel Saunders. If you're out there,
he's definitely listening. Like.
Yeah, 100%. Me and him started working at this company at the same time. Both junior developers. I had a bit of experience. His story was that he was selling laser printers up in the fucking north arse of England somewhere, and he started going on to Reddit and looking at, like, he was just spending his day on Reddit in between stuff, and then he was trying to find out how to code through Reddit. And from his experiences, he just wasted loads of time on Reddit, like looking at people asking about code and how to get into it, blah blah blah. In his off time, 6 months later, he had enough to basically apply for his first junior developer role and get it. And he was super green, like me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he had the grit, and he had the aptitude, and he was just such a nice person. Like he couldn't even say a bad word about anyone. You couldn't even make him. Like he is rash. He just couldn't do it. And he was so funny, and so he was able to basically, from just exploring Reddit over a 6 months period, obviously he was doing stuff, he was learning along the side, but he went from 0 to 60, you know what I mean, in that respect. And not 60k, but like I'm talking about a car analogy. And then with the boot camps, the boot camps, what they promise is obviously seems good, seems like, oh, this is gonna get you from some hell to heaven.
I think the structure and accountability is good in those environments.
Oh no, I think some of them can be good, and some of them have gone on it, but if you can do lots on your own before you do the boot camp. Like I wouldn't think I'm gonna do the boot camp, that's my way out. I'd go to Code Academy, I'd learn JavaScript, HTML, CSS. I'd start looking at building my own website, and then I'd do the Code Wars stuff. I'd be doing Code Wars daily.
Like 20 minutes a day,
20
half
minutes
an hour
a day.
Yeah.
And then it's fun. I used to love. I got real into Code Wars. I got too into it. But then when I came to do my interview question, I was smoked it because
Go on, sorry.
But that's because I put into practice, and I've been used to this environment of being asked, you're given this stupid little task, like empty this glass of water. It's like, oh, I know how to do that. You know what I mean? And it was very simple there. But
so if you like, I'm just trying to get, because people are probably listening and they're in a job and they're thinking, right, this sounds like something that I might just go and do. But it's like, how long would it be before I could get a junior position? Like, if I was to dedicate even half an hour a day.
Well, it depends. So let's say you developed. So what you want, right? Let's think about it then. Your CV. You need to say you've done things on your CV that are related to coding or programming, or depending on what way you want to get in.
Yeah.
Let's say you want to be. I think the quickest way is to go to be a front end developer, because a lot of back end developers, a lot of heavy logic, really clever brains. They just like, oh, front end, CSS, HTML, that's you know what I mean, that's not for me, like let someone else do that. So if you could probably say, okay, if I want to be a front end developer, you want on your CV, finish this Code Academy course in HTML, CSS, finish this Code Academy course in blah blah.
Yeah.
Then with the Code Wars, I'm a level blah 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 in Code Wars, complete this many things in Code Wars, blah blah. Then if you have it, the icing on top, if you think about your website, and the website, you could think about, you could do a blog, or you could just do, imagine you converted, let's say you post stuff on Instagram or not, you could create an Instagram clone website just for you, where it just shows your posts, whatever they are to you, in chronological order, pictures that you like. That could be one part of your website. One part of your website could be a contact page. And you can be as creative as you want to be. Like, imagine getting crayons out on a page and just like, we're just colouring in boxes and, oh, I'm putting my name here. And what if I had a menu? Or what does the footer look like? What does the bottom of my website look like? You can be as creative as you want. And the more creative, the better. And then Google what to put on your CV as a junior developer, or how to get things on your CV as a junior without any experience.
Yeah, and then of course, like, link to your portfolio on your CV, and as well as your LinkedIn profile as well. Or your whatever your blog website or whatever it is. I seen actually a creative one where someone set up a Wikipedia page as their CV, so it was in the layout and format of a Wikipedia page, but it was describing their career.
Yeah,
that'd be a cool idea.
And there's like, think of other little ideas. So some lad, you can do crazy stuff, right? So if you actually have a little Raspberry Pi, which is a programmable little computer, people hook that up to kind of these LED displays, and you know, they'll have it. One lad did it for another office across the road because they didn't have clocks in their office or something. He did it as a nice gesture or something. So he put this clock in their office. I forget what it was for years ago. There was something like to let people know what time it was at a particular thing. He had this programmed in his window in his office, and that blew, like, there's loads of things that blow up on the web, like little ideas, like how to create, like, automate social media posting in terms of the creation of, you know, like maybe you want to remember, we, like, at our last company, the jobs board, we had to create posts or images for a job. So a job has a job title, it has a company, and it has a company logo, and then we had a template where we put all that information into our template, but I had to do that all with code. You can basically do anything that you
Yeah, it's like a generator, yeah.
It was like it would generate images. You could have not an idea, but like a magic 8-ball. You could create a magic 8-ball. When you click a button, a ball spins, or not even spins, it just says loading. It could be as simple as you want, and then comes up with a new message every time.
Yeah.
A randomly generated message. Or what if a random number generator?
Right. And so timeline wise, like, estimate, like,
it is hard to estimate.
3 months, 6 months,
at least 6 months of hard work
from zero. And
but you'd have to think about it. It's you're in it for the long haul if you're going into this. So if you're not willing to say to yourself, I'm going to commit 6 months to this, well, then you've already, like, there's no point. I think. Yeah,
it's like learning a language, like, you know.
Exactly. It's like learning.
You have to
it's
want
like,
to.
It's like learning anything that's very difficult to learn, and anything that's worth having is going to be difficult. And I think it's the most rewarding job of the 21st century is to be able to program, and it's the most invigorating. Like with me and Joel, we used to just be like, I can't believe we're getting paid to do this. Like, we're just having so much fun,
like solving puzzles,
and we're going to work, and we're just. I love coming to work. I love what I do more than and like I'm doing contract now. It's like I always want to be doing something with it. You know what I mean? I hate to not be in, because the world of development and programming and technology is so interesting to see what's possible, what's happening, what are the current trends. And where is it going? It's like I'd be reading stuff about libraries and technologies that, you know, they're only coming out, they're only new, and I just, oh, look at what they're doing. This is going to be a new paradigm. This is going to change. There's so much every year especially in JavaScript. It's nearly a joke, you know what I mean? You know, if you wrote a book in JavaScript today, like a year later, it's like, oh, we don't do that thing anymore. You know what I mean? That's old.
Outdated.
But I will say, JavaScript is the most ubiquitous language. It's the most well used. Python is more, it reads easier. I actually have been programming a lot in Python now, and I had to say I enjoy programming in Python more in terms of its syntax. It's less verbose, like you have to write less, and it's more like the English language. But anyway.
And right, so 6 months, you're ready to go for your first interview. You get the junior developer role. You're probably coming in at, like, I don't know, it's probably in around, the way inflation's gone, maybe 40k, in around that, 40 to 50k.
Well, it depends. I'd be willing to, like, my first job was just me and Chuck at the company, and I started on 19.
Yeah, this is a few years ago. It's very.
Well, this was like, I was just accepting a job just because I needed to get the experience to get in.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, all right, people are, like, they could be 10 years into their career and they're thinking, I need to get out of here. It's like, they won't be able to take a 19k job. Yeah. So I'm trying to make it more accessible to people.
Sound nicer. But what I'm saying is that it's gonna be hard. Like, you're competing with the world as well, especially now in remote work. Like, lots of, especially development is work that you can do really well remotely. You don't need to be in the office, and developers know this. And like, our whole team is remote. Like, right now, I've worked remotely for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So that means the competition pool is greater. But you will be like, I mean, even with my experience and aptitude, like, depends on how hard you work and how much time, like, how much is your work depends on how much your work really, and that's depend on how much you're putting in, and how developed your skills
average
are.
wise though, say, like
I'm not sure. I haven't looked at that in ages. Like, I'm getting paid a high end amount now as a contractor, but I can't remember, like, I started at basically near minimum wage.
Yeah,
not
a graduate wage, like, after college, kind of.
Well, some people, a graduate wage, if you were a really good graduate, it would have been 30k back then.
Yeah.
And then in America, you can get, it's like 100k graduates. Because, but you have to be, how much do you want it? And the payoff will happen over time. And if you really put the time in, you can make a lot of money as a developer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like 5 years in, you're looking at like in around 100k. That's in Ireland in euro. So in the States, that's probably 150.
Yeah, if you're working full time, and then you can always take it to that next level. Like, if you want to go then try and work for Google, you dedicate more time then into that study. And there's pathways. There's people that are showing you the path online. You just have to Google it, but it's just graft and hard work. And if you get into these companies, it's gonna be nice. You know what I mean?
They really look after their people. Like,
look after you. It's very nice and cushy. But at the beginning, I'd be looking for startups, because startups is where you get to wear loads of hats, and people give you way more responsibility than what you should get. And you'll just be like with this startup, it's kind of a startup, although it's making millions. It's the company itself is going to be a startup. They're thinking of separating it out from the company, but like, I'm just like, I never used this technology before, and like, we're building something from scratch, so it's like, let's try this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the processes haven't been decided on. We're learning, and then I have a say. Then it's all kind of I'm developing my intuitions. Whereas in bigger companies, where it's like, oh no, we need you to basically, we have these emails and we have these templates, and we need this to be this thing every time. You know what I mean? Whereas there's less innovation, there's less room to wear hats. Like, you'd be so surprised. Like, it's just crazy, like, the things that you're just given responsibility for.
Versus a corporation where you'd be fixed on a set task and a set project.
Exactly. So startups, actually, that's a big point.
Yeah, that's good.
Look for startups, and they'd be more than willing to take junior developers. Like, the pay won't be great, but you work a year there or whatever, if you can. It depends on obviously what stage of your career you're at. If you have other credentials, you know what I mean? If you've been working in another industry, you can offer startups lots of other value as well. You know what I mean? It's like startups,
your perspective will be
you learn so much of startups. Like, I actually haven't, I've only worked at basically startups in a way.
Even in our startup, you ran every, like, back end and front end, so that gave you a wealth of experience. And because it's dressed up online very sexy. Like, there's a fella, Frank New, on TikTok, and he retired at 30, and his final job was at Netflix, 500k a year, and he set sail into the sunset. And that can get people's ideas flowing, just like, Jesus, imagine I could go ahead and do that. But obviously it's, there's a lot more to it than just, getting that job in Netflix and getting the 500k.
Yeah, exactly. And also, you don't just want to, I mean, fair enough. If you're looking at this as a way to not work, that's great. You know what I mean? That's a good driver. And maybe you have responsibility, maybe you have family, maybe you have reasons for wanting to just pursue for the financial side of it. But there is a side of it where it's very rewarding and very very lucrative, as you know.
Yeah, because you said you might need to have an aptitude for maths, But my motivation for maths was zilch. It just hurt my brain. But if I had this driver where I've got a wife and kids, and you know, if I put my head down in 5 years, I could be making like
it'll pull you through
high six figures. Like.
When I say maths, like if I have to add like 73 plus like 140 whatever, like I hate that's arithmetic. Like that's like I can't. That's like calculator work.
Yeah.
But what the kind of maths is, it's more like algebra. Like if you have like lots of things are like imagine you had a TikTok or a video, right, that was in portrait, and you wanted to make that a landscape video, so you'd have to scale. So imagine the dimensions of that picture. There's a way of scaling down that picture, but keeping the aspect ratio, which means that it doesn't get stretched in either side. And that's a little mathematical calculation, but that's a formula, and you could work it out yourself, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But writing you're basically writing little formulas, and then the other thing as well. So it's like, if this picture is portrait, do this. If it's landscape, leave it.
Set rules. Yeah.
So like the general thing is like it's like logical control statements, and it kind of ties into computers are ones and zeros, like on or off, like true or false. That's like fundamental. And I don't know, like there's loads to computation and the underlying architecture of CPUs and stuff that I have a little bit about, but it's absolutely insane how instructions get basically ones and zeros, transistors allowing electricity through or not allowing electricity through allows everything we see around us. It's absolutely fucking insane.
Imagine we were to start from scratch. Like.
Oh man. You know what I mean? Like Alan Turing, like he basically found all this out because he was trying to break the Enigma machine back in World War II.
Oh, the German.
He wrote the first computer, like, and he had all these. Someone, you can create a computer in Minecraft. Someone recreate it. There's a whole instructions. It's a massive thing. But anyway, the whole point is that okay. And then if you don't like this, programming is one side of it, but with HTML and CSS. If you have an aptitude or any inkling for design, HTML, CSS is so. The other, you could go into tech as a designer. So you user experience, that's UX. That's where you're like, okay, I have a checkout system, and I want to get them from adding the product to selling the product, and all the steps in between. You know, we need to get their name, we need to get their email. We need to put the credit card information, but we need it in a certain order. And what's the experience? So user experience tries to make it focuses on trying to make that easier, right? But then you have like UI, which is like like the design of it,
the interface,
the actual look, the color, the symmetry between the things.
Like the Apple website, like it's so slick,
so
like,
beautiful. But so user experience and design, they go hand in hand. Now they are separate professions or whatever you call them. But if you learn HTML and CSS, some designers only know how to use Adobe Illustrator or Figma or any of these design suites. If you know HTML and CSS, you can bridge the gap. Like Amy, she was a developer and a designer, so she understood what some people, they'll design stuff and they don't realize that this is kind of an impossible thing in this world. They don't understand that we can't actually do that, or it's infeasible or whatever. But if you know HTML and CSS, the fundamentals, then when you're designing your images or your web pages, then you'll know the fundamentals of HTML and CSS and how this will translate. And then you can talk to developers in their language. You know what I mean? The more you can unify the language across your team, the more valuable you'll be. So you don't have to just have an aptitude for maths. If you just wanted to be a designer,
if you're creative,
UX,
if you like
UX,
if you like art, if you like drawing.
And your HTML website can be so simple. Then you know what I mean. You don't have to do any JavaScript. But then if you want to,
that might be an easier path. Well, not easier, but a more direct path for creative types.
Yeah, so I think for creative types, HTML, CSS, but then you need to double down onto the design. You need to look at websites that you find beautiful and try to basically recreate the parts that you find beautiful on your own website, and try to get across that you can create these structures on web pages that are really pleasing. And when someone sees that, and you're a UX UI designer. And why UX? Like, what could you could get people to say, maybe you can, there's free APIs out there so you can check if your website, if your password has gotten hacked. So you submit an email address and it tells you whether you got hacked. So imagine you created a little form. It's like, find out if you got your website hacked. You go, enter your email. Next. And it's like, and then processing. You might get a nice little loading wheel. And then if it comes up green, or you make it nice, you know what I mean? Make it like, everything is hey, yay! Maybe a little sound plays.
Confetti and...
Yeah. And then also, if it's red, it's like, oh, you need to do something terrible. You know what I mean? So you can create, think it just like you're now, it's easier, it's all this stuff, man, it's easier said than done. You know what I mean? As in, it's easy to come up with these ideas, but you have to actually, there's no free lunch here. You need
serious willpower.
You need serious willpower.
You can't just pick this up.
You can't just pick this up. You need serious work. And it's like everything, with like music production that I'm getting into now, it's the graft is insane. You know what I mean?
I described this to you the other day. Someone posted a video, a career guidance fella, and he was talking about the amount of jobs in cybersecurity and how well they pay, and how, like you talked about, all the learning is free. And then someone commented under the video going, this sounds great. How long does it take to learn? And then some lad who had obviously worked in cybersecurity goes, it takes years of hard work. And that was just the end of conversation. So that's what I mean. People dress it up with these 15-second clips. These resources are free, and you can go to the Harvard website and learn this and learn that. But it's like, you need unbelievable willpower. If you need to really want this. So that's obviously something you need to consider. Are you willing to dedicate, a half an hour a day every day for 6 months to start from the bottom?
Exactly.
And as well as that, there are other pathways in, though. You can move, a linear or lateral move within your own company where you are now. They might be willing to train you up, or you could find a bridging role. So let's say you work in customer support, you want to break into IT, you could be, IT or tech support, say. So you're finding the bridging role in between, and you're one step closer then to making the full pivot.
IT support and tech even, familiarity with the basic apps that people use, like Excel, Google Sheets, Google Docs. If you have an inkling that, I am sort of a power user on a computer or whatever, or
the family gets you to fix the internet when it goes off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that sounds like
put that in your CV.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then you can find, like you're saying, maybe there's opportunity within where you already are, and that could be another way. But you just have to say to yourself, can I create time in my life to pursue this, to learn, and can I do this over a period of at least 6 months? And am I willing to do that? And you can have relapses, like along the way.
Yeah, you'll hit the bottle.
You'll hit it's very, very likely. The amount of times when I'm pursuing something that I think, this is just too hard, I want to pack it in, like, good luck to all this, and then I have to come back around and just sit back down and say, all right, here we go again, starting again, lost all that. But you're never losing work, you're never losing experience, because whatever way you get from A to B, that's whatever way that is. You know what I mean? There's no way of getting around that. And if that means for you it's going to be filled with like pain and relapses or whatever, there is a path to B. You know what I mean? If you're willing to just grind through it, you know what I mean? And then, but the payoff is just so good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you have people promising these things, I'm getting these ads for Tony Robbins, like, coming up and saying, like, become something similar to what Paddy Jobsman does here, where he's selling kind of informational products or whatever. They're trying to make their thing into a business or whatever, and he's just, the way he's saying it, it's like everyone has something that they can make a little business off online.
Yeah,
and I'm just thinking
they can package it real nicely.
It's so hard. Yeah, it
will take everything you have.
It'll take, like, you know what I mean? It's so hard.
Yeah.
What? Like, there's no way around the hard work. There's is no quick solution.
Yeah. But that doesn't, that doesn't get clicks. Especially when I'm browsing on the likes of LinkedIn, you have these creators and they're selling courses and they'll break everything they've done down into a 8-point checklist. That's like, all you need to do is build a personal brand.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're going to have to create content for the next 5 years every day and, potentially work 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day. But that's not going to sell.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and
you have to consider it all.
The other thing as well is that anyone that's really great weren't Googling what's the exact steps to get somewhere. The path for every one of us to wherever it is that we want to go is going to be different, and it's going to be customized for us, and we are the ones that customize it. We have to say, all right, look, imagine all the different people saying this is the way, this is the way, this is the way, this is the way. There's bits of each way that we can take, but in order to sort of fine tune our own intuition and development in a particular area, we create the path ourselves. You know what I mean? And our path is our path. You know what I mean? And that's a big aspect of it, is that you basically just have to go through whatever it is that you have to go through, but you have to just be willing to show up every day and say, I'm going to be doing this.
Yeah, regardless of how I feel about it.
Regardless of how I feel about it.
Yeah. And the thing as well with moving into the IT industry or tech, it's in terms of job security, it's very high, and future prospects. So if you feel like you're in a sinking ship, it's definitely an industry. And then there's other pathways. There's data science as well, which is huge. One we talked about, cybersecurity threats. That's always on the rise. So there are lots of opportunities if it's a path that you're willing to go down. I don't think. Yeah, I mean, you've laid out a good pathway for people.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's hard for me to kind of express in a way because the rabbit hole goes so deep.
Yeah,
so I'm trying to keep it as a higher level as I can.
Yeah, and that's even difficult as it is.
Yeah, but yeah, the basic gist, like Code Academy, Code Wars, build a website, get things for your CV. That's the general gist.
Yeah.
And then we want to take it to that next level. Leak Code is another website. Cracking the Coding Interview, which is a book that is very popular in this space, and that breaks down all these kind of little problems you'll get. And then Algo Expert is something that from looking at the market, is something that I want to get to take my stuff to the next level. If I want to, it depends on what I want to do. You know what I mean? I'm in a good position now with the contracting, but contracts are good when you're in them, apparently. And but the risk is that you won't have them forever. So
yeah, it's like high risk, high reward.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's not a salary. You get paid for the time you work.
And how abundant are contracting opportunities? Because I've talked about this before on my social channels, where I talked about your current setup where you work 2 days a week. You get a good month's salary for those 2 days. You don't need to work any other hours throughout the week. And then for the 5 days you can pursue your other passions, the music and the producing and all that jazz. But let's say I wanted to, my goal was to have that sort of setup where I only needed to work two days a week, 3 days a week, and that would give me time then with my family, pursuing other endeavors. Like how difficult would it be? Because you've obviously put in the years of work.
Yeah, so my skill set.
How likely is it after you have a few years of experience under your belt? Like, are they abundant, the opportunities?
So it's hard for me to really gauge because I kind of fell into this contract in a way. But what I'll say is that there are avenues to get contracts that don't rely on you specifically going out and find them. So there's websites. One is called TopTal, TOPTAL, where there's an interview process or whatever, and then if you pass through them, they supply you with contract opportunities. That's how Fred actually got into the industry.
Cool.
Or got into contracting.
What's the name of it, sir?
TopTal, TOPTAL. It's called TopTal.
Cool.
Tal apparently is a word for something that means, you know, the elite of the elite or something. And then there's other ones like X Remote that I keep getting ads for that I haven't looked into. But there's these kind of people or companies where you'll apply to. There'll be a process to weed you out, and you'll have to actually. It's not going to be easy, but you can use them then to kind of, they'll facilitate you by giving you work. Then there's obviously another thing we haven't talked about is Upwork. So Upwork is actually a good way to actually expand your portfolio. I just realized there. So let's say, for example, a common task on the web. A lot of businesses are kind of built on top of this is web scraping. So we were a jobs board, and we were trying to get all the jobs around the internet onto our website. So what we do is we'd scrape jobs from Indeed and put them onto our website. Just for example, so we get the title, the description, the salary, the link to the job, and we'd put it on our website. So web scraping, if you can actually learn how to scrape websites, that's a massive sort of tool in your arsenal, and allows you to kind of find more work on the likes of Upwork that people are looking for. So what you'll see on Upwork, if you just do web scraping, you'll find jobs. Now the pay won't be great, right? You'll have to just start somewhere. It'll be 20 quid or whatever for scrape this website. I need to find like whatever. Yeah. You'll a bid on it, but that'll give you your first few jobs and portfolio things on your CV.
And you can link back to that.
Exactly.
On your CV.
And do the Upwork stuff for free, even.
Yeah, to get them 5-star reviews.
Get them 5-star reviews. Just say, listen, you give me this job, I'll do it, because these are these predefined programming tasks and jobs that you can actually do. So, all right, Code Academy, Code Wars, Upwork, find little small jobs that are people are posting for 10 or 5 or whatever. You gauge how feasible they are with your current sort of really tools and skill set, and then if you build loads of that up, you'll have loads for your CV as a junior developer, and you'll be coming in with more than someone even coming out of college. You know what I mean? If you really put this in, and Upwork, eventually, when you do more jobs on Upwork, you will build up a reputation, and then you'll be able to make more money on Upwork. A lot of people make a lot of money
potential freelance work then as well, which is another avenue you could go down, where you pick and choose the projects you work on, and then you know you get your time back. Exactly. What you touched on college there, would you recommend if I had just finished the Leaving Cert and I signed up for a 4-year degree in DCU, Dublin City University, computer science, I'm 17, 18, would you recommend they sit in college for the next 4 years to get that degree? And as well as that, if I was a mature student, let's say I'm mid-20s, late 20s, and I want to break into tech and I sign up for a 4-year degree, would you recommend either of those people go the college path or go the pathway you just described? So I think college provides a good structure and accountability. So, but if you're just going in to skate by, then it's not going to give you as much as it could. But then again, if you're in that place where you're not willing, you're just doing it to do it, then without it, you're going to be even worse. You know what I mean? You're not going to be motivated. Waste 4 years. Yeah, exactly. So that's what we did. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah. I played FIFA for 2 years or something. I was just figuring out how I could do the least amount possible. Yeah. But that was my strategy. That was my brain. And even that is a useful way of like looking at a system and saying, how can I do the least? But what I would say is that if you're going to take this seriously and put the time into college, it's a great time and opportunity, especially, you know, if you're like younger, because that means, you know, you've more time to kind of just explore, and then college and meet people. Yeah, the networking is one element of college I like. Yeah. But in terms of, if you want to get a
learning
job,
materials. I know.
if
As
you
a
wanna-
pro, yeah, I know. A lot of people that I've worked with had no degree in program. Like Fred, no programming degree, but
who's running
they
the
did have degrees, and they did have like education behind them in a way, but
it's not necessary.
it's not
Yeah.
really everyone most of the people I know didn't have degrees in computing that I highly respect and would recommend as developers.
Yeah,
you know what I
they're
mean?
great people.
Yeah. I have a little bit that kind of get
Yeah,
me,
but your college experience was,
yeah.
we went to a college where attendance wasn't mandatory, so we wouldn't go in and we just cram for the exam.
Yeah. So the degree, especially as a junior developer, it can help you get in. You know what I mean? The boot camps are something for your CV, so that's something you have to think about. You know what I mean? If you're just saying, okay, how can I get the most things on my CV in the least amount of time possible? Boot camps are better than college for me because you can do them quicker, right? But obviously, doing your own portfolio work, that's another aspect that's really good and totally in your control and free, right? So it depends if you're paying for your college course, because in college you'll do loads of different things that really aren't related to the general. Like boot camps will be real focused and targeted on a specific thing, and if you're sort of supplementing that with the boot camp stuff with the stuff I described already, then you'll probably accelerate the speed at which you'll be able to get a job. Whereas with college, let's say it's a 4-year commitment.
It's a waste of time.
Well, it depends. It really does depend. It's a waste of time if you waste your time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. It's about how you like. If you put the time in, the effort, and you're not just cramming, then you'll get loads out of it. If you're networking, if you're really trying to take advantage of the situation that presents itself, then you can get loads out of it.
I still don't think, this is my opinion on it, is that when you weigh it all up, yeah, sure, there's a structure in place and you network and you get access and all this, but if your goal is to get a job in tech and to start earning money, I don't see why anyone would go to college. Of course, college is, it's a necessity for engineering, for medicine, the STEM fields. Of course, get your degree, like absolutely essential. But apart from that, anything that you need to learn is on YouTube. Yeah, literally, any profession. And then it's about, like you talked about, building up your portfolio, showing evidence that you're investing in yourself, because a company's only going to invest in you if you've shown that you've invested in yourself. And once you can get to that stage, well, then someone's going to take you on, and then you can start earning money and you can get a job. Yeah, if you have the drive to pursue something on your own without the need for college or structure or accountability, you can do it yourself, then go at it. You know what I mean? Yeah. For me, like if I didn't have college, like who knows what I probably wouldn't have had the motivation to pursue any of that on my own. I probably just would have really wasted a few years in terms of I would have had a good time, but I wouldn't have had anything to show after it. You know what I mean? Yeah. You don't know. Well, even the time I had in between work, it wasn't the only time I learned to work was at work for me personally. Yeah. Same. So, like when I got the job, when I got into work, I think trying to get into work as quick as possible, but yeah, like there's just pros and cons. If you've already, let's say, if it's easier for mature students, I think, because they've come through work, they've done stuff already, and they have a general sense of what it means to sit down and put in effort. But if you're just coming from school and you've just kind of just skated by or whatever, you've had no real structure, it could be hard. But if you're like the kind of people that are going to do this, would be successful anyway. The people that are interested in transitioning or they feel like they've just wasted years of doing nothing, it's like, are they just going to be able to switch it around tomorrow and do it? Yeah, like that's, yeah. You know what I mean? There's a lot more to it. Yeah. So you have to just say, is this going to be another video or soundbite that you hear that you get real riled up for in the moment, or are you going to take this and really go at it? That's the question. And I think that is a great segue to the course that you're selling,
Yes.
the programming course.
basilbreen.com/make a lot of money working for Netflix /now.
Yeah.
That's where you'll find it.
3 easy payments.
3 easy payments. All that stuff I said is kind of just I put it in a little box and I package it off to you, and I mean $3,000 every 3 months or
Let's
something.
do it.
But if you want to do you want to change your life? Do you want to stop eating shit? Do you want to stop having to answer?
Hold on, we're not talking about diets here, right? Well,
yes.
yeah, no, this was very enlightening. So, if people wanted to hear more of Basil Breen, you know, where can they get you?
Well, if they just search Basil Breen in any search bar, apart from the Pornhub search bar, then they could probably find
not getting
me somewhere.
monetized now, are
Yeah,
we?
that's gonna get bleeped out. And then basilbreen.com. Most of that you'll see is podcasts and this room. You know, you might be saying, Jesus, where he's doing his podcast is a little bit familiar. I don't know where I've seen this before. I don't know where I've seen the yin and yang or whatever.
Basil Breen Studios.
Yeah, well, this is it's the Breen Studios. Breen Studios, that's good actually.
Yeah.
Then
BS.
you mostly see BS Studios. You'll see, basically basilbreen.com, Basil Breen, search everywhere, music and podcasts mainly. The program and stuff, I do have the source code for my website available on GitHub. So GitHub is another great resource to see projects and other, like clicking in and seeing how people write code. Because basically the whole ecosystem of technology and development and programming, it's all built, everyone's just building these open source libraries. Open source means that anyone can see the code. If you want, Amazon they don't have their website like code available, so they're closed source. But they'd use open source libraries to run their stuff. You know what I mean? So
Facebook is open source.
They have some open source libraries, like React.
Yeah.
Lots of companies will have stuff like open source initiatives, but if they were fully open source, then they're giving away their money maker.
Their intellectual property.
Yeah. So basilbreen.com. If you're interested in programming, you can scroll down to the bottom, click source, and you can see how I structure Basil Breen. You can actually just copy the code. You could run basilbreen.com on your machine and just take the website.
Just plagiarize everything.
You could take my website, and I love that because it's open source.
Yeah.
And you can just put in your own name, your own thing, whatever, blah blah blah.
What a community.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, look, thanks for coming on, brother.
Grand, no worries.
And we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.
That was lovely.